Yes, I'm ready.
All right. Welcome to another day of Dose of Did You Know? And today I am with a very unique and intriguing man, Robert Blake. How are you today?
I'm good. Yourself?
I am doing very good. We were talking early before we went live that we are both stuck and living our quarantine life the best way we can, right?
Yeah. And you're shining, so.
Yes. Tell me a little bit, not me. I know a little bit about you, but in a little snapshot for the world, who is Robert Blake?
Um, as far as I can remember, I was born with a question mark here in the forehead. So I always ask myself what life is all about. And when we were a kid, when I was a kid here in Montreal, there was a giant doll telling stories on TV. And every time she was saying like "Once upon a time," which is "Il était une fois" in French.
What is that?
Was like "Once upon a time," the French version of "Once upon a time." She was amazing, and she was telling stories, and so I grew up with that "Once upon a time" in my heart, and combined with the question mark, I became a writer. Who write stories that are doing good to people, and yeah, it's food for thoughts, but for all ages. What I'm doing, actually, when I was 20 years old, I was a student at Sherbrooke University. I wrote one story, and it's called "The Little Apple Story." I don't know if you went to that, you got that one, but it's a one-page story. And back then, there were people who got tears in their eyes reading that little story. It's really a one-page story. Once again.
Oh, yeah, I haven't gotten to that, but the bookmark that was
it
sent
was
was
at that
on
there.
that page.
Yeah, it's all started with that story. Back then, the question was like, okay, what I'm writing is touching people, and what should I do with it? And 20 years after, it became a work. But to resume who I am, basically, for sure, I'm a passionate person, highly intuitive. I follow. I mean, I'm a dreamer, but I'm not satisfied of dreaming. I always say to kids, don't be satisfied with dreaming. Go for it. Yeah. And then you'll walk on a path that there's unfortunately not that many people. And just to be on that path, it's a success on its own. So I always say, never be satisfied with dreaming. Just go for it. And when I ask kids, when I'm doing workshops, I always ask them, is there anyone around you saying, oh, you won't be able to do it because you're not good enough, you don't work enough? Yeah, we call them downers.
Debbie Downers, yes.
Yeah. So for me, it's just surprising how many parents sometimes they say to their kids, oh, you won't be able to become a dancer, become a football player, a soccer player, or whatever. And me always like, don't listen to them. Just follow your dream.
I think those Debbie Downers are based off fear. Everything is...
It's their own limits. We cannot blame them.
Yeah.
I mean, for example, parents always want the best for their kids, but sometimes it doesn't match what they really are. So, yeah.
Yeah. It's not our path for our children. I want to hold up your book here because this is the one I'm reading. This is what I'm reading right now.
Yeah.
And I was amazed because when we first talked, a good friend of ours, Callie Faye, introduced us and said, you guys need to meet. And after I met Robert, I was like, yes, I did need to meet you. And the world needs to know who you are because when I started reading this, he said to me, it's for all ages. Like he just said to everybody else, it's for all.
Yeah.
It's exactly for all ages because what I'm taking it from as a grown woman who I love humanity. I love the complexity of humanity. I love relationships, and I love very hard and very deep. And sometimes it can be very overwhelming to people because I give all the time. Yeah. And you talk a lot about ego in here in a way that children can understand it, but also adults could understand. And I started picking that up. I was like, you are a genius.
Inspired. Because that story, sorry, I'm pointing at you. That story in particular, I wrote this book mainly sitting on a rock facing a lake nearby Montreal. And in my book, when I wrote the question of Paula asking Mr. Jacot what the ego is all about, I was like, okay, help me, because I need to explain the ego to a kid.
Yeah.
I was like, almost erased that question inside the story. But then I received the image of a big piggy bank. Because I write through images. It's like a movie going through my mind. So it became the legend of the 3 piggy banks. But honestly, when I first wrote the question, I was like, oh my God, I have to explain the ego to kids. And it's like, okay, help me. And I received the image. That's the way I think it.
You have to explain ego to adults too. I spend a lot of time explaining ego to adults because it's very complex, and what we're taught in school, or what we are kind of taught through generations, I think is a misconception of ego. A lot of people see ego as being very negative, and that's all it is.
The way I picture it is that it has to sit on the when you're driving your car. Okay, there's a lot of things to say here. In the book, Mr. Jacot once say to Paula, the trick with the mountains of life, meaning the challenges, is to learn how to fly. It took me 5 years to understand what I wrote there. And remember the movie called Blade Runner?
Yes.
Okay. When the cars are flying, their wheels are horizontal. When you drive on the pave, of course, they are vertical. So the analogy is this one. When your ego is behind the wheels of the car are vertical. You drive on the pave. So there are holes, mountains. It's difficult. It can be very difficult. Sometimes it's easy, but sometimes it's very difficult. But when it's your soul who's behind the wheel and the ego on the passenger seat, the wheels of the car are horizontal, and you just fly over the mountains of life. So the trick with the mountains of life is what? Let yourself guide by your soul.
Yeah.
Not by your ego. I believe, and it's only my belief, that the ego is useful in certain times. But it has to fight for the right cause.
Yeah.
For the good of all. This is where it's useful.
Yes.
And if you look at trees, they have their own ego. They are fighting to get to the light, to have access to the light, but they will protect others also. It depends. But so I see it as a useful when it's on the passenger seat, not the driver's seat.
Yeah.
For many years, I had dreams. I used to study my dreams, okay? And I had dreams where my car was stolen. I was like, what's going on? I couldn't find the definition of it. And it's like, and at one point I just asked, I have a friend who she was very spiritual and blah, blah, blah. And I told her about it. She had a big smile. I said, what? She said, about it's your soul who's, can I put it? Your car, meaning your vehicle, is being stolen by your ego. I say, and I remember, do you know the dream before waking up in the morning? It's like just the last dream of the night. I thought, okay, no, somebody's stealing my car again. What's going to happen? Seriously, in an hour, just an hour after, there was a situation like an event that my ego got involved. I was like, okay, just relax now. It's just your ego responding. So yeah, but I write through images to go back to your original question. I write through images, and about the 3 piggy bank legends, I was like, what's going on? I have to explain that, but I did. That's all.
You explained it very, very well. I actually even bookmarked it here. So page 29 is where I start, where it really it's good. Page 29 of that. And when I was going through it, one of the other things I wrote down a couple, well, I wanted to write down a ton, sentences or paragraphs. And I was like, oh, maybe I could just read. I'll just like read the book to everybody and then they'll understand this brilliance. But that you talked about people are searching when you're talking about the ego and the spiral and the box. Yeah. Everybody, you're gonna have to read the book to know what I'm talking about in depth. People are searching for balance and yes. That is it. You wrote, people are searching for balance and harmony. They're looking for that balance and harmony. And when I was reading this, I was thinking, how appropriate right now, because everything is out of balance. We're kind of being forced to look and find as a universe, as a whole community here all together. And I was like, how appropriate that this is, I'm reading this right now of that search for it. What was that about? Do you remember like what vision came to you, or what do you have more input to tell me and share with me about that part?
One day I told the guy upstairs,
Yep.
You can call him guy. God, whatever. Yeah, the guy. I call him celui d'en haut, the guy upstairs. I just told him, let me be your tool. And soon after, I was sitting on the floor in my living room, and I draw the box in the spiral. I said, okay, this is what life is all about. And 2 weeks after, I rent a movie with Keanu Reeves, The Little Buddha.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
It's an old movie. It's a bit tacky, but it's the message about, it tells the story of Buddha. And so Buddha was the son of a king living inside a castle where there were only young people, healthy people. But at one point, he felt some emptiness inside his heart. And without the accord of his father, he went outside the castle. And then he met people who were suffering, dying, being very poor. So he became an asset. It's a special religion. He had his disciples eating roots. But one day when he was hungry, there's a young lady who offered him a bowl of rice. And this is where he got the illumination that the path toward lights is in the middle of the two extremes. This is what you have here. Actually, if I just move a few pages after, you have it here. Like this. Whoops, sorry.
There you go. Yeah.
So the path toward lights is in the middle of the two extremes. And a lady that I've met in a cafe, she said, about there's more into it. There's this. Whoops.
Yep. Yes.
How to follow the path of your heart, knowing the rules of the box. But here, the box is open. Mm-hmm. As a free spirit, you cannot live or survive inside a box that is closed.
Yes.
So when people are working too much, going burnout, is because they lost themselves inside the box. Mm-hmm. Here, it's about the material world versus the spiritual world.
Right.
More than often, people think they are opposite, but they're not. Mm-hmm. See, Aboriginals, for example, when the white people came to America, they were in balance with their environment. Now we can see them living more inside the spiral. But as a matter of fact, we have to learn from them. They have to learn from us.
Yes.
This is where we should encounter.
Mm-hmm.
So kids, they're supposed to be inside the spiral, but more than often parents are throwing them inside the box. They're dealing with the stress of their parents. And more these days than when I was a kid. Because when I was a kid, there was more a separation between the adult world and the children's world. Now they're like there's a family of 1, 2 kids, and they're sitting at the table, being part of the discussions of adult subjects, etc., etc. But they're also going to school. They have an agenda. They had an agenda when I was a kid at school. So it's just too much for everyone. And right now, what the planet is telling us is that, well, maybe you should think about getting more toward the middle and this. Yeah.
It hit because I was like, you're writing, history repeats itself. We learn, I'm a big believer of learning through stories because you're learning through history. You're learning from other people's experiences. So when I was reading this is your interpretation of obviously an experience or a vision that you had, like you said. And so I said, how appropriate that these words are hitting my heart and soul right now at a time like this, right? There's always like the perfect time is a time like this. And I love how you talked about how you said, when you were talking to the big guy up there.
Yeah.
You are a vessel of that. And I said, like, that is one of my, things I say in that almost wake up state. I'm not awake, but I'm not dreaming. I'm kind of coming out. And part of it is, just, guide me and let me just be a tool. I am just a tool. I am a resource. I am just the body.
But it's tricky. There are days where you're just like, okay, this is enough. Like, send me signs, and you're receiving signs. You're just like, okay, I receive signs, but where are the results? I'm still there. For example, in my case, sitting in a bookstore, selling books one by one, talking to people, presenting the book, knowing that it's not only a feel-good book, but it has acted as a life changer for many people. And then you're like, okay, what's going on? And I've been told by so many mediums, not because I'm paying for them, for their service, I meet them. It's like, you're not patient enough. I said, what? I've been doing this for 8 years, 12 years, 15 years. And it's like, okay. And it's like, okay, whatever. And then every time, I don't know if you had to deal with this, but, for me, it's an act of faith. And when sometimes your faith isn't strong enough, I receive messages. It's like teachers saying, hey, your books are very important for us. There's not a lot of stories like yours. Or a big part of my readers are over 70 years old. And for example, someone who's dealing with the passing of a relative. I don't know many women that had to deal with the passing of their husband, and the book have helped them just has been acted like a bomb on their heart and soul. And but yeah. Words can be healing, and that's what it's doing, I guess.
It is true. And when you said, there are so many times because I said, okay, I will say yes, and I will go if it's something that's pure, and I know it's coming from a pure place, and it aligns with my morals. I don't understand, but I'm going to go down this path and see where it leads me. And there are many times, like you said. For yourself and for me, I'm like, I don't even know where this path is going. I feel like I am blindfolded walking through the woods. Yeah. I know I'm trusting, but where is
it going? Yeah, especially, as a writer, being a writer comes with many challenges. It's my own business too. So I was an entrepreneur before. I am an entrepreneur. It's there's a conviction. I see fate as a garden, and sometimes you have to work on it. It's like you have to keep working on it.
Yeah.
But I don't know. For me, it's like I have one of my uncles. He was my favorite uncle. Was a missionary. He went to Papuasia. And I see my work a bit like that. Like, it's like it's a blessing when you can make a difference in somebody's life.
Yeah. And
it's a blessing.
So you were really doing that. And I am grateful. I'm grateful that our paths crossed. But again, There are no mistakes. It was perfectly placed. That Callie was perfectly placed in my life. And then you were perfectly placed in my life. And it has been a blessing knowing you. So I have my ending question to everybody is, because again, like I said, I love hard and I love deep. And I believe love is flowing. It's constantly changing and flowing. So right now, in this moment today, in your state today, what is love to you?
Consciousness. Once again, I'm not just lost the image. I'm just going to show you something. This is Samuel. It's only in French right now. It's about reconnecting and healing your inner child.
Okay.
At some point, consciousness and love are synonyms. And every day of your life gives you an opportunity to work for the good cause, to work for consciousness or love. Every day. Like the guy ahead of you didn't put this blinker, you're like rah, 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 you 30 seconds before you did the same thing. It's not always easy to listen, to follow our heart at all times.
Right.
We've been, sometimes you have to kick your ETS. But at the end of the day, when you achieve that, you go to bed and you're in line. You're aligned with the all that is. I don't know if you know alchemy, but there's the all that is, and we're all part of it.
Right.
And there's one book here, which is Kaya. It's about the creation of the world being told by a leprechaun and by Mr. Jaco, a wise man, the wise man in my story. And here it talks about the equilibrium between all the kingdoms: vegetables, minerals, animals, human, and the imaginary world. Fairies do exist for those who believe in them. And I think we reach a point, I hope we have reached a point where people will be conscious enough to respect all forms of life.
Yeah.
Starting with the ones we eat, animals and vegetables. And we're all part of the same one.
Yeah.
And we just forgot. And it's easy to forget.
It is easy. It is easy to forget. And I love that answer. I love that question because I never know what I'm going to get. And it's so unique. And it just gives me something to think on for the rest of the day. Getting a little, that is so. Thank you for sharing what love means to you. And how can people find out or follow or just stay in touch with your work? What is the best way?
The easiest way right now is my page on Facebook. You
Perfect.
got me on Instagram. I don't know what I'm going to do with it. I'll give it a try. But by the end of the summer, the plan is to get my book on the internet, probably through Amazon, although I've been questioning some issues about it. But that's the easiest way to reach people. And who knows from where it's going to happen. Maybe one day there'll be a US publisher will be interested. I have no idea where I'll do the work through the internet. I used to be a consultant in that kind of business, so we'll see. But right now, the easiest way is it's easy to find me as Robert Blake, writer, author on Facebook. So it's quite easy to follow.
Perfect. Well, I'll keep my eyes out there and of course share with everybody.
Talking about your eyes, I have to say that to people. When you meet someone like Danielle and you see the brightness of their eyes, it's because they are highly sensitive and highly conscious. So that's a little word.
Oh, that was a special little treat so thank you.
So
thank you so much. Again, I am so honored that you came on and shared your heart and who you are with all the viewers out there. And you really did touch me. And thank you so much.
Yeah, keep in touch.
Yes. And like I always say, love hard and love deep and love pure. And until the next time.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye.